So hi, good afternoon. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for coming to this afternoon's presentations. Thank you for the introduction. I won't have to spend any time really going through my background. Today I'm going to be talking about going beyond cybersecurity solutions, which you may think is strange from somebody that works for a technology vendor, not going to be talking about technology directly. But we have a stand outside, and we have people there that are manning the stand that are open to talk to you about technology. So what I'm going to be talking about is more security strategy and ways to implement technology to help you with your security program. So starting off, okay, I've spent 15 years in information security. I started out being a professional security tester, and I spent lots of years ethical hacking. And I was very concerned when I fly nowadays because BA referred to me as my chosen career path rather than my name. Okay, I am a hacker by name, Neil Thacker, and I do like to kind of test security technologies on a regular basis. I think I've actually tested most of the technologies up here to see how effective they are as a countermeasure. So again, if you're interested in my work there, then feel free to get in touch with me. That's some of my work that I work with ENISA, the European Union agency, and also the Security Advisor Alliance to offer best practice recommendations. But today I'm going to be talking about things that you can get for free to help you with your security program. So first off, open source intelligence. Okay, there's lots of information out there today. There were some, again, brand name hacks and brand name vulnerabilities that were disclosed earlier and highlighted earlier. I'd always recommend going out and reading from a security vendor's perspective their blogs. Okay, we have a blog at Websense, Websense's Security Labs blog. It wins an award pretty much every year for the content that we produce. And it includes lots and lots of information around how attacks happen and some of the key indicators that you can actually see and bring into your security program. You don't have to pay for this service. You can tell, again, your wives, your children, your parents to go and read this blog if they're interested or concerned about cybersecurity. We have tools that can be used. If you go to csi.websense.com, anybody can do this. They can paste in a URL, click on Analyze, and it will tell you if that URL is bad or not. Again, this is something great for your kids, again, wives, parents, etc. If they're ever concerned, they get a suspicious phishing email. Okay, it may not look very legitimate. We're seeing more spear phishing attacks look so real. They can go to this tool, they can paste, and they get 5 goes a day. Pretty sure they won't be spear phished 5 times in one day. And then we have, again, groups such as this. So Websense have invested heavily in our own internal security program. And we've actually brought in lots of security professionals to focus on that. So this is our office of the CSO team. And again, we have these people here, including myself, that if you're ever concerned about a security issue, a security program, or you want best practice advice, we're here to help you as well. It's a free service. We don't charge for any type of consultancy. But the idea really is to help you, again, achieve success in information security. So those are the first 3 things up front. And again, probably the best takeaway, if you're ever interested or concerned about an issue, please look at one of those services that we offer. I'm now going to be talking about, again, what is the general issue we have in security? We sponsored a survey last year, surveyed almost 5,000 security professionals with at least 10 years experience. You had to have 10 years experience in order to answer this survey. And we started looking at some of the issues. First up, most people say, more than half say they can't stop an advanced cyber attack. Next, almost 2/3 doubted they could stop the leakage of confidential information from their organization. That number is slightly too high for my liking. That number should be a lot lower. 80% said their company leaders did not equate losing information to financial impact to the organization. And I think, again, the actual sponsor, the company that actually undertook the assessment, I've already highlighted it's between $6 and $7 million average for each cyber attack where data theft occurs is the impact to the organizations. They've already proven that this exists. But from a boardroom, from an exec's perspective, they're still unsure of that link between an attack and financial impact. And again, over 1/3 of those organizations that actually were a victim of an attack, they didn't know what had been stolen from their organization. And something I learned 15 years ago in information security is you have to look at the risk, you have to look at the impact, and you have to look at the likelihood. And one of the issues we have at the moment is we're not able to demonstrate the impact enough in organizations because we don't know what's been stolen. Okay, there was a quote this morning that somebody said, you're probably already compromised. From my perspective, that's not always the case. There is some concerns that you all have data leakage guaranteed in your organization, and it may not always be from an external threat. It could be somebody inside your organizations. So these kind of stats kind of then draw me onto, well, what is the threat landscape? Okay, if this is the percentages we're looking at, where do the threats come from, or what do they look like? And again, there was 10 people contributed to this report. I was the only vendor, but I spoke and documented lots of findings, lots of threat telemetry to build this report. This is the European Union Agency threat report. It was released about 2 weeks ago. If you're interested, that's a very long URL. Please don't write that down. If you're interested, send me an email and I can send you the link and the document. But it highlights the top 10 threats. Okay? I'm going to be talking about 9 of those top 10 threats today. So the top 4, malware, web-based attacks is number 2. They work hand in hand in most circumstances. Then you look at things like web application attacks, code injection, redirects. Number 4 is botnets. Okay. The unfortunate thing on this report is that the trend is up. Okay, attacks are increasing. They're increasing in sophistication, but also in quantity as well. Then we look at things, again, at the bottom half. I'm not going to be covering DDoS today. There's just not enough time. But talking about spam, phishing, exploit kits, data breaches, and then physical damage and the theft and the loss of critical assets. And you've heard about the kill chain today. Quick show of hands, who's actually introduced a program to monitor for events that occur as part of that kill chain? Has anybody actually introduced that? Do you know about the kill chain? Yeah. So a few of you already introduced programs. So looking at each one of these threats individually is good, but it's not effective. You need to look at them, how they work in conjunction. You need to look at these threats as an indicator that something is going on that isn't quite right. But on its own, you can't just stop one of these threats. It's impossible. You have to look at a campaign where an attacker will use each one of these attempts to gain access to your network, your asset, in some cases, your critical data. And this is how we relate this back to the kill chain. So this is going to be a very, very quick whirlwind view of what the kill chain looks like. And again, ethical hacking, I did this 10 years ago. There's a whole book written on how you attack an organization. And we pretty much see day to day the same campaign used time and time again. It's the most common attack pattern. The attacker performs their recon. You can use tools that are available now freely. Discover Scripts is one, Multigo is another, that performs this recon for the attacker. Tools now will also build a lure, a spear phishing email. Very easy to do. It doesn't take much effort from the attacker. People will click on links within emails. We know that. It will redirect to a compromised website. And this compromised website is not a known compromised website. It will be compromised for a number of minutes, sometimes days, sometimes hours. Forbes.com was compromised at the end of last year. It was compromised for about 4 weeks in total. What the attackers did, they went back in, they cleaned up the attack. They then put it back into a compromised state, then they cleaned it up again. They evaded detection for 4 weeks. And you can imagine, Forbes.com is one of the top websites in the world that's accessed. If you visited Forbes.com in November and maybe December, then I'd recommend looking to see if you have a compromised machine on your network. These attackers will use exploit kits, free tools, and in some cases, tools that are very cheap, a few $100s a month, that will look to target a vulnerability, a zero-day vulnerability on your employee's machine. And this is a retro graphic for the employee machine. Of course, it can be any device they physically have. It could be a mobile device, it could be a desktop, it could be a laptop, it could be anything. It could be a wearable piece of information they have. It could be a printer in your network. We've seen attacks launched against printers that are connected to the manufacturer's website, or sorry, the manufacturer's network, but the organization doesn't even know that happens. They'll then launch a dropper file, the malware. Again, most companies will have like an AV type product running on their web proxy. Some may have sandboxing technology. At Websense, we have sandboxing technology as part of our product. It's an add-on feature. And we see attackers try to bypass the sandbox technology every day. Sometimes they're successful. We have to look at things like the callback to ensure if that malicious code has executed, even if you have application whitelisting, blacklisting, There's exceptions in place in most organizations, and the attacker will know that as well. They'll be able to look to bypass those things and initiate malware and execute their attack to that final stage, which is data theft. A lot of business reports I'm reading now, the CEO in most organizations, in their top 5 risks and issues today, in 2015, data breaches have now made their mark. Before 2014, 2013, going back the last 5 years, they weren't even in the top 10. Now, today, they're in the top 5. A CEO is concerned about a data breach because of the impact of their organization. So then we need to look at the countermeasures. So what countermeasure do we need to deploy if we're looking at those indicators specifically? And which type of countermeasure do we need to invest in? And typically, again, it goes back to your email and your web security countermeasure. Those are typically the controls the attacker is looking to bypass in almost all occasions when this common model is used. And again, relying on AV, relying on basic proxy, basic filtering type controls is not effective. So how do we then rethink our security strategy? Going back to the strategy of this. Well, over time, I've been involved in lots and lots of security assessments, looking at security strategy for organizations around the world. And some organizations are stuck on infrastructure security. If all you need to protect is the availability of your organization, then you're pretty good with this first stage. You don't need to mature past that. Most organizations I speak to now, unfortunately, they don't just have to protect availability. They have to go beyond that. Some rely on compliance to get budget. Some rely on compliance to put in these types of technologies. And I'm also seeing they've got the technology, but they don't have the people to manage them, which is one of the biggest issues. The more advanced companies that are really looking at the latest threats and looking to mitigate against them have a threat-based strategy. They're looking to analyze threats using things like breach detection tools such as sandboxing. They're looking to run malware forensics. They may even have their own malware forensics team or an outsourced team. Some use threat intelligence feeds or have a threat intelligence platform to analyze, and the majority will run through a threat modeling exercise. Most organizations will use the kill chain as a quick win as part of that. The most advanced organizations I see that have a security program are focused on risk-based data-centric. That includes things like data discovery, using tools like DLP and behavioral analysis and predictive analytics to determine when an attack is about to take place. Somebody said this morning an attack may take 10 minutes to occur. That will generate, in some cases, hundreds of events in your organization. If you miss one event, it could be catastrophic. It could be the attack is successful. You need to capture all of those events. And use things like DLP to see if they got through, how difficult is it for them to get out with your critical assets. It's a lot easier to detect data leaving your organization than, again, metamorphic malware coming in. It's kind of being proven that that's the fact. So companies are moving away from just looking at these 1, 2, 3, 4 type programs and looking at specific kind of terms that they can then relate back to their execs and their board. Focusing on things like business risk, not just perimeter security. Focus on things, again, moving away from passive detection technologies, like sandboxing on its own, to the ability that they can predict events before they occur. Going back to the previous slide, if you can predict stage 7 before it's occurred, you know you're being attacked, you can put in more effective countermeasures, or at least you can be prepared to respond to an incident. Again, another takeaway point, if you're interested, looking at risk-based data-centric strategies. This is a blueprint for security, talks about the terms. The best way of choosing a countermeasure is based on the vulnerabilities you have, the risks that these calculated because of these vulnerabilities, but more importantly, the assets that you own. And making sure that security, your security program, isn't owned solely by you, it's owned by your owners. Your business owners, your risk owners, your information owners. They should all be part of your program, and you should be meeting with them on a regular basis. I meet with our owners virtually every month, and we have a committee meeting where we talk about what is it we're trying to protect and how we're trying to protect it, and also share with them metrics from the technologies we have so we can demonstrate that we are applying a good security practice. This is my role. I'll be asking questions on this later if this map's similar to yours. But this is my role, but this is how we need to move towards more risk-based data-centric by doing those things. Discovery, classification, access control, looking at data theft prevention, partner access, supply chain access, looking at all these things. That's how you move towards risk management and data-centric. And again, if you want a copy of this, please let me know. I can share this with you in an XMind format you can customize for your own role. So another takeaway point is we need to move towards more asset-centric security, because threat on its own, again, we haven't done a great job over the last few years of just looking at threat on its own. We have to map it back to the assets, the ownership, and the business context. We have to look at the attackers as well. We have to profile them. We have to understand the campaigns that they launch. Do they meet a certain type of criteria? Do they match the vectors that we've seen in other attacks? Do we need to look at the kill chain in more detail? That helps us get to a stage where we're better at pre-incident than before. The underlying, the three supporting pillars for this are elements of things like machine learning. So machine learning algorithms that can determine an attack, again, before it happens or during the time it happens. Looking to maximize the value we get from threat intelligence. Threat intelligence on its own, you're going to spend so much time just focused on that threat intelligence, it doesn't add value. It needs to be mapped back to the asset-centric program. So in summary, understand the kill chain if you can. If you have any questions, let me know. Threat model based on that kill chain. Okay, there's lots of documentation out there. Academia are really focusing on the kill chain as a common way of focusing on threats and analyzing threats. Use the vendor. If you have a relationship with a vendor, if you don't have a relationship with a vendor, come and speak to us. We're all outside. We can offer you, again, advice and tools that can be used to help you understand how we can move towards this more effective program. Raise the human IQ by using education, understanding where, again, typically organizations fail on the weakest point, which is the employee. And again, focus on that risk-based data-centric strategy to be the most effective. I've summarized this quickly in a pyramid, highlights the fundamental, the kind of foundations of all security programs should be a security strategy. Without this, everything kind of falls down. You have to have that good foundation. Then you need to have very good people, trained people. Then you need to look at the technical controls and then focus on prevention and then detection and response at the top. That should be tactical. That shouldn't be your strategy. This is strategy to tactical. And once you've actually done that, those 5 kind of steps, you should then work back down that step as well, looking at, again, how you're using detection and response events to ensure you apply prevention, to ensure you have the right technical controls, to then look at, are your people trained or not? And again, feed that back into the strategy. That's it from me. Thank you very much for listening for the last 15 minutes. If you do have any questions, you can email me. I'm around for the rest of today only, unfortunately. But again, you can contact me. You can follow me on Twitter. If you have any questions, again, I'll be around for today, or you can email me. But thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you very much.